Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Week 9 edition of In Season ADP Chasing. Got a lot to discuss today. We got Pat back to look at the rookie quarterbacks, the rookie running backs, talk about our outlooks for them for the rest of season in best ball and redraft. A lot to get to today. Let's do it.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually, back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. All your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to ADP Chasing. Another week where two wide receivers suffer likely season-ending injuries in Christian Kirk and Stephon Diggs. That's been the story of the season thus far. Pat Davis, how are we doing this morning?
Honestly, these two season enders are not that bad for me personally. Underweight on both of these plays, but it's just even when Derrick Henry sucks, he still gets there. Derrick Henry, total loser. They lose to the Browns, does nothing. Zay Flowers gets tackled on the half-inch line instead of just scoring to give Derrick Henry his touchdown. It's just it's just that year. Honestly, I've given up on the idea that people are saying my mic is a little low. It's just not going to be my year.
Hey man, all you need is one team, right? You can still get there in the playoffs. But yeah, it's been a tough year for the wide receiver injuries. I think that's going to be the story of this fantasy year so far. I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 season-ending injuries to wide receivers so far this year. I'd actually have to go and tally it up, but a ton of them too were
missing for Tyreek and for Waddle. Pat, you're Mr. Pat. You're on mute.
No, I just think Tua missing is low-key huge because you have two guys going in the top 2 rounds there that,
Three,
it was not
really. I mean, if you include A-Chain.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. That's been brutal. And they were over. I mean, Kirk and Stephon Diggs were not smashing by any means. Actually, Diggs, I think, was a pretty solid win where he went in the 4th round. Nothing special, but a good wide receiver pick. But then so many of these other season-ending or major injuries to wide receivers have been some of the best picks on the board. Rashid Shaheed in the 10th round looked like an awesome value. Rashee Rice obviously was looking to be a smash pick. Nico Collins, who is due to be back, he was wide receiver 1 in fantasy and points per game basis. So it's been, one of those seasons. Tough run out so far, but we'll see.
The other thing too, Kirk has been such a disappointment, but he was actually showing out a little bit in that game. And then he goes for a deep pass. It's exciting. You're like, oh man, Kirk's really coming alive here. And then he suffers this brutal collarbone break.
Yeah, he was also live to get traded. There's plenty of reporting from ESPN and other insiders saying he was live to get traded. So there could have been a fun turnaround in his season, depending on where he ended up. Probably would have been the Steelers or something.
Davante Adams going to get traded again? Is Davante Adams going to spend 2 weeks being in New York? Yeah, I don't even know if that's allowed. I know in the NBA you can't do that. So if you've been traded once, there's a lot of stipulations that you can't be traded again. But I do wonder, what is Adams' purpose on this Jets roster? He's not going to be on the team next year. Rodgers probably not going to be on the team next year. So what's the point?
Adams, I think, reportedly said to Rodgers that, basically, if I'm going to come here, are you going to play more than 1 year? I think that was part of it. But you do wonder now if he's like, hey man, if you want to start that podcast, go for it.
Well, I mean, also he's going to have a position in Trump's cabinet, isn't he? So Rodgers going to have bigger stuff to deal with pretty soon.
Yeah. What's even the status on Rodgers' contract? I think he does have technically has years on his contract in the future, but
I assume he's got many years. Yeah. So he is due $23 million next year, but then 2026 he's got a void year. So sadly, we will probably have one more year of Aaron Rodgers and 7 national TV Jets games.
I don't know about the national TV games. I think people may realize
you fundamentally misunderstand NPC culture if you think that.
I also
NPC
love
culture. What is that?
I love the Jets. I love the Jets in prime time. Just watching Aaron Rodgers
culture?
fall flat on his face.
And NPC culture is earnestly celebrating National Tight End Day and being very excited that today is the sports equinox. Like people are. I think I fixed my mic, guys. I think I did. Yes, but basically NPC culture is getting very excited to watch Aaron Rodgers try and fix the 2-6 New York Jets on Thursday Night Football, which by the way, they do play on Thursday Night Football this week.
I don't think mainstream America is getting any joy out of this Rodgers experience. It does not want to re-up. That's my take on this. If you're saying that the people celebrating National Tight Ends Day also like watching Rodgers, I strongly disagree. I think the national tight end people are very much over this, as are we.
Man, I love watching Aaron Rodgers fail in prime time. I'm not.
But Sam, you're doing it. You're not who Davis is talking about. You're sitting there going, the failure. The mainstream people just want to watch football, man.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of Aaron Rodgers haters out there. I speak for a huge slice of America, so I don't know.
I mean, I would categorize myself as a bit of a hater. I just think that we just got to get this guy off prime time.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's enough already with the Jets. Let's move on to the meat of today's show. We're going to talk about quarterbacks and running backs, the rookie quarterbacks, running backs. That is, last week, Pat, you were not here. We talked through rookie wide receivers and tight ends. So if people are interested in those positions, go ahead and check out last week's show after this. But today, focus is going to be quarterbacks and running backs. We'll start with the quarterbacks here. And again, we're talking rest of season outlook for the quarterbacks. We might get into like a little bit of dynasty long-term discussion on these players. I think that's certainly always a part of it when you're talking about the quarterback position, but mostly going to try to keep this focused on, if you drafted these guys in best ball, or maybe if you own these guys in your managed leagues, what type of assets are they in fantasy rest of season? How excited can we be going forward? So let me slowly add this spreadsheet to the screen here. There we go. Okay, so these are the 4 rookie quarterbacks that matter. Obviously, we had JJ McCarthy out for season. Michael Penix backing up Kirk Cousins. Doesn't look like he's going to play anytime soon. And we're not talking about Spencer Rattler.
Neither was really drafted.
Yeah. So these are the guys that really matter for fantasy going forward. I would say let's start here with Jayden Daniels. He was drafted as the quarterback 10 around pick 100 all offseason. He is now averaging 22.5 fantasy points per game. I removed that 1 week where he left very early versus the Panthers. That puts him as the quarterback 3 in fantasy this year, I believe only behind Baker Mayfield, shockingly, and Lamar Jackson. So he's ahead of Hurts, ahead of Kyler, ahead of Mahomes, etc. Let's start here, Davis, with the Jayden Daniels conversation. Is he a top 3, top 4 quarterback rest of season? Is it that simple with what he's done so far?
Yeah, I'd probably make him the quarterback 2. I'd probably say Lamar 1, Daniels 2, Hurts 3. You could talk me either way on Hurts. Like the highs for Hurts have been so high, but the lows have also been fairly low in terms of what the passing game has looked like. And, eventually they will stop. Eventually, they'll stop getting tackled on the 1 every game, right? It just feels like every game it does happen, but I guess it just keeps happening. Maybe they design their offense that way.
Just to go out at the 1.
Just to go out.
Saquon was supposed to take the ball out at the 1 in that play.
I will say, remember the year with Hurts started, it's like, oh, God, this guy looks slow. He looks pretty sluggish. Like, that is gone now. Like, he looks much better as a
I never thought he looked that slow. Whatever. I don't know. I found that part a little bit confusing. Kurtz has never been that fast. He's more like a running back in terms of his ability to make people miss, but he's not Lamar.
Yeah. I do agree with Davis. I thought, again, could just be my eyes playing tricks on me or confirmation bias from the box score or whatever. I did think I agree with Davis a little bit here. I did think Hurts looked more dynamic as a rusher the past couple of weeks, but who knows? He's been getting it done on the ground regardless all season, especially in the touchdown column. And that's at the end of the day what really matters. Like if his yards per carry efficiency is low, doesn't matter if he's going to get 3 tush pushes from the 1 yard line. Like
it's so funny. The Jalen Hurts is going to be really bad for Saquon Barkley's fantasy value. People were right, but Barkley has just been so good that it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like Hurts is on pace to have, I believe, more tush push touchdowns this year than he had last year, but it still doesn't matter. Like, isn't that crazy? Like basically it's like the doubters were right, but it doesn't matter. Particularly for Daniels, I will say, I feel bad about having more Caleb than Daniels, like honestly, because
I do too. Yeah.
I just bought and like honestly, I actually like my opinion of Caleb's level of play would still be higher than what your average NPC would say about Caleb. Like I think there's been a lot to build on, but definitely should have put more weight on Shane Waldron being just this awful OC who is not going to. I mean, has there been more than like 2 plays all season where it's been like easy for Caleb to execute the way some of the Jayden Daniels stuff is? So it's like make one read. If it's there, throw it. If it's not there, run or scramble or check down. There's been like none of that shit for Caleb. Yeah. And that is not blaming Shane Waldron, because that is asking a leopard to change his spots. That's on me for thinking that Caleb and these wide receivers would be enough to elevate that. And clearly that has not been the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is. I mean, I know you're kind of blaming Shane Waldron, but like it's like really, really on Shane Waldron. Like watching Alex Van Pelt with the Patriots, who like, this dude stinks. But like they're doing some stuff. There's some screens and some, there's like a little bit of occasionally you're like, oh, it's a good play. Like the bar's pretty low. So and you're just not getting much from Chicago.
So the chat is fundamentally misunderstanding something about Cliff. Cliff is a bad coach for winning games. Cliff is a bad coach for creativity. He always had a bunch of easy stuff for Kyler, though. It wouldn't be particularly effective. A lot of it wouldn't be down the field. And I mean, you can argue some of that's on Kyler. But there were certainly mini games, mini series where like you were like, oh, that offense, like, that looked pretty good. Got these guys moving, like got Kyler out of the pocket. Like Cliff understands offensive football far more than Waldron does. No doubt about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Kingsbury was that he was like it was like a fatally conservative offense. Like it was really pass heavy, but the best part about the Cardinals offenses in those years was they actually had a pretty effective run game. Like the run game was really well designed. And they weren't threatening deep, like we call it like the horizontal raid. I think what Daniels has done is he's unlocked some of that. Like they don't throw deep that often. That's one of the things when I look at like Jayden Daniels' deep rate and stuff, it's never particularly high, but it's very potent. When they attack deep, he's often hitting these beautiful throws, and it's like a game-changing type of element to the offense. I would say, I mean, it's not too soon to just say like, Kyler's never been that guy. Like this is already a level of kind of deep passing prowess that like he didn't have with Kyler Murray. Completely. Credit to Cliff to incorporating that into the offense in a way that I think you get punished as a defense. Like if you're like, all right, we're sick of this. We're sick of you being able to run on us and being able to do stuff underneath or whatever. Like don't get too sick of it because there might be a Terry McLaurin bomb coming your way.
Yeah. I do think a couple things, like I do think maybe Cliff learned his lesson a little bit with the wide receiver personnel he was deploying in Arizona versus the Commanders. And, it's not entirely his choice over the personnel in either situation, but in Arizona, they were trotting out like the smallest, like gimmickiest wide receivers in the NFL. Rondale Moore, even Christian Kirk and Marquise Brown, pretty good players, still very small wide receivers. And I think that does to some extent limit the downfield passing attack they had there in Arizona. And here they have like bigger bodies like Noah Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, Luke McCaffrey. None of these guys are special wide receivers, but they're bigger bodies to help probably a bit with blocking in the run game and help a little bit unlocking over the middle of the throws, downfield throws for Jayden Daniels. So I think that's been helpful. And I think there's like, I don't know, like I'm thinking going forward, maybe this is no longer a 2024 take, but this, speaking of Almeida, Zacchaeus, Noah Brown, this wide receiver corps is still pretty bad. Like, can Jayden Daniels even hit another ceiling if you remove Zach Ertz, Noah Brown, all these guys?
Hey, dude,
actually get
Zach Ertz is balling, dude. Zach Ertz is playing football out there. I don't want to hear any Ertz be smirking.
He's fine, but my point is just like he's out.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to hear you say that you're like into the wide receiver personnel, because I think I agree with the second point that, like, I mean, frankly, Terry McLaurin has never been that
exactly
good.
Yeah, I was going to say
Terry
that.
McLaurin's been Terry McLaurin is an awesome number 2 wide receiver, but he's been a number 1 wide receiver for his entire career, and that's had us, drafting him that way for fantasy, and we get decent production out of him. But like, I don't know, I don't think Terry McLaurin is an elite number 1, or even really like a strong number 1. So you could upgrade there, and he's the only guy. And then the gap from McLaurin down to everybody else is massive. I'm not trying to say McLaurin's not a really, really strong number 2. But, I don't know that anyone else on the team should really be starting.
No. And my point is just like,
a tight end or wide receiver.
Yeah. My point is not that these guys like Noah Brown, Almeida, Zacchaeus are like great players or great fantasy assets. It's just like, come on, man. Like Rondale Moore and Andy Isabel, like guys like that is like
the undersized slots. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like useless, like real life players more so is my point. They're not helping unlock any efficiency in the offense. They're like 5 yards per target guys. At least with Noah Brown, Alameda Zacchaeus, Diami Brown, even they can open up the offense a little bit more. So, but yeah, I totally agree with, like, I think the bigger point is give Jayden Daniels some better secondary, tertiary weapons here.
No, give him Luther Burden or Tet McMillan. Or one of these guys. I mean, although the Commanders are going to win too many games.
They're going to win too many games.
They're going to pick 21st or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Moving on here, I guess to the Caleb thing. I agree with Davis's point. I think like a leak in my game, and I don't know if you guys feel this way at all, but I do a lot of drafting where I'm doing other things. I'm working out. I'm going for a walk, and as a result of that, I am so hyper focused on stacking that like I do it kind of mindlessly. So I was taking so many Bears wide receivers early, right or wrong. And that was just leading me to tie break Caleb over Jayden when they were like in the similar range so much. And I just wasn't taking much McLaurin. There were no other Commanders pass catchers going early. So that's certainly a leak of mine that I think
that's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
I got to adjust that going forward for sure.
Before we completely move off Jayden, I did want to say, I mean, so my truth serum take on him was, my truth serum take for Pete's video was I should be drafting more Jayden Daniels, and I'm really not. I'm not drafting enough Jayden Daniels. That's my truth serum take. But the reason I didn't ever get that was like almost a cry for help to myself to draft him more, which I did a little bit of at the end. But you removed the game where he gets hurt in the very beginning with ribs. I mean, it's
going to be many of those.
That is why I was nervous about him. Like the fact that he misses that game, like I think it's illuminating to see like kind of what he's actually produced. So I'm glad you removed the game, but at the same time, like that game hurts. The game that people had him in the starting lineup. He's gonna miss
3 games a year in like crucial spots a lot because he took a crack to his rib cage. He doesn't. He literally. He is not that dissimilar from Richardson. He just lets himself he's better than Richardson at getting out of bounds. Like Richardson, I don't think I've ever seen not get tackled on a run, but he does not protect himself very well. Right. Like even yesterday playing in that jacket, I was like, oh my God, bro, settle down, dude. Like he just, and he's skinny. Like Richardson is 225 pounds, 230 pounds. Jayden Daniels is like 190 pounds. He's a beanpole, man.
Yeah. My other problem with
Richardson's weight doesn't protect him as much as I would want it to. Sometimes it just seems like it makes him go faster and then it hurts more when he gets tackled.
Yeah, he kind of has the Mike Williams thing a little bit where he like lands heavy when he falls. Like
that's exactly right. Yeah, he's got a Mike Williams approach to the ground.
Yeah. But yeah, the other part about the Jayden thing is like it's crazy looking back at how bad the command. We already talked about their wide receivers. The O-line on this Commanders team was also supposed to be like the worst in the league besides the Patriots, and I don't hear that talked about nearly at all. I think it's been a great job by the coaching staff here. I think it's probably been a really good job by Jayden Daniels to hide subpar talent on the offensive line. But that was another concern for me. I'm just like, this environment for the Commanders is a disaster. Terrible O-line, terrible wide receivers. Like, is the ceiling actually there? Clearly, that was wrong. The ceiling is 100% there. So I didn't full fade him by any means. I think I was like 7%, like just below average exposure, but that does not feel great to me at all right now, especially because I was all in on all the rookie quarterbacks in years past. Like I had so much fucking Trey Lance as a rookie, Trevor Lawrence as a rookie, all these guys who busted. So I'm kind of upset that I let this one slip through the cracks.
I only got 8% Daniels because I have 10% Caleb Williams. I must have leaned off on him in the end. I would have thought I had way more Caleb Williams.
I think I ended up similar on Williams. The thing with the stacking on Williams, I think that's a great point. Like, there's this, we run into these situations. I think the 49ers are sort of like this, although they score so many points, it's harder to say. But like with the Bears, DJ Moore's going 3rd rounds, Keenan Allen was going 5th round, Rome Odunze is going 5-6 turn. Those ADPs all reflected too much optimism for them to like really get there together, I think. So like are you betting on the Bears or are you betting on one of these guys to emerge as the dude? You know, I think maybe we were doing the latter there. We weren't just kind of traditionally stacking them, if that makes sense. And so
yeah,
I think the leak for me was like thinking, you know, I should be getting the Bears and then getting Caleb, and I have these high upside stacks because like Caleb has definitely improved as the year's gone on. He's exciting, but it was very optimistic for us to expect him to support 3 top 60 wide receivers. That was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And I didn't take a ton of more, but I was pretty into Keenan. I'm pretty into Dunze. You know, the cheaper of the two, you know, the 2 cheapest of the 3. I was like, yeah, let me capitalize on this, you know, generational quarterback prospect coming in, but it's still pretty expensive. So that's kind of where I don't mind having Caleb so much, but you know, if you had like a bunch of Caleb Cole Kmet, you'd probably feel pretty good.
Yeah. Luckily I did walk ass backwards into some of that, even though I wasn't like especially high on Kmet as a talent. But yeah, so much roam for me with Caleb, which, you know, it's a long season. I can't say that feels great right now. Like if we were redrafting, I think Rome should go a little bit later than where I took him for sure. I think it's
buddy. If they did a resurrection resurrects today, Rome would be like the wide receiver 56. No one would want him.
Yeah. I mean, what is wide receiver 56 an underdog? Like the 65th pick or something? I mean,
no, he's like
not anymore, buddy. They're all
not
hurt.
anymore. Now it's like the 180th pick.
Yeah.
Now I don't know, man. Like the thing with Rome is like you can be harsh on him. He's had a rough start to his rookie year for sure, but go check out the advanced stats for his teammates, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and that's an extremely ugly sight as well. So it's really hard for me to tell. Is this a Rome issue? Is the Bears wide receivers as a whole just going to flop this year? I don't know, man. It's a tough call on that one. But yeah, Shane Waldron coming out of the bye and increasing Gerald Everett's route rate again and reducing Cole Kmet's. Dude, I thought
this dude is such a joke.
I thought we learned this lesson already. What do we do?
I think the Everett stuff was about the game. Like it was just like a low scoring game, and then like, you know, you play more 12 personnel, you run the ball more. Caleb had nothing. I mean, Caleb really did not have any until the 4th quarter. That was the worst game that he had.
Is the Commanders defense like maybe kind of good. All the numbers.
I think they are.
Dan Quinn is just a good coach.
Okay.
They're on a good streak. Like, I think if you look at the overall season-long numbers, they're pretty bad. But Pat, if you look at like the last couple weeks, I haven't looked into it in detail, but just pulling up their results now, they obviously they held the Panthers to 7. Can't give them too much credit. They held the Cardinals to 4.
I think you can give them some credit because that was Dalton, and Dalton had some efficiency against like the Raiders and stuff.
Sure.
Like that, they didn't really even hold them to 7. Like, they basically shut them out. They had the garbage time Chuba Hubbard touchdown at the end of the game. Like, that was really bad by the Panthers. I mean, it is the Panthers, you're right, but even for the Panthers, that was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on Caleb, and I think this is an interesting point that Nate Tice and I've heard him bring this up, that he gives like Shane Waldron some credit for putting a ton of stuff on Caleb Williams' plate. Like, they're actually letting him come to the line of scrimmage, read the defense, like make a bunch of on the line adjustments, call audibles, things of that nature. And his argument is that, like, while it's ugly in the short term, that's like a good way.
It's going to make him better next year for when Shane Waldron and Eberflus are fired and someone else is in the building.
Exactly. Yeah. So I could buy that argument as like a good long-term thing for him, but it does feel like they're overcomplicating things for him compared to what the Patriots are doing with Drake Maye, what the Commanders are doing with Jayden Daniels. Like, they're asking too much of him.
Can I just get some DJ Moore crossers? Can I get like four DJ Moore crossers?
I think that's probably good that they're letting him do stuff at the line and all that. But like, that to me, that's not about the design of the offense. Like, you should still have.
You still shouldn't give it to your backup offensive guard on the 1 yard line for a fullback carry. That costs your team the game. That seems bad. Something different. That seems bad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. He's well like put. Shane Waldron is like, if you I don't know what it is. Like, he's just too galaxy brain out there. He tries to do way too much, like too much trickeration, too much weird personnel stuff. It's just like,
well, I think what it is, honestly, is if you had a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, and you're like, who's the dude that Peyton Manning was with and then went on to coach the Jets with the guy with the eyes, Adam Gase? I guess it's a bad point because he was willing to work with Adam Gase. But if you had one of these guys who's out there calling all their own plays and everything, would they really want Waldron as their guy?
Right.
Also, Aaron Rodgers has freaking what's his dude's name? I'm blanking. I haven't had coffee yet.
Hackett.
So actually, maybe this is a terrible point. Maybe actually these guys who call their own plays don't care at all who their OCs are.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
But it is like, what is he bringing? If you're putting all this stuff on his plate, like, you could still create still give me like a Kevin O'Connell, like Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel style offense where there's like, you're doing stuff as an offensive coordinator that's helping confuse the defense, helping not know the defense what's coming, so that the quarterback has easier reads, more successful throws. There's yards after catch built into these plays and all that. Like, what is that? You can't do that if you have the guy calling protections. Like, that seems like you could do both to me.
I agree with that. I think it's like a part of the story, but it doesn't tell the whole story with Caleb Williams. Quickly here, if you drafted Caleb Williams at QB 12, ignore the him versus Jayden part of the conversation. Just say like he was drafted at quarterback 12. Pat, how are you feeling about that going forward? Like, is that a good or bad pick if you had to argue on?
I don't think you're feeling that great, in part because you could have gotten Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins, and like there's guys after him. So you're not getting, I think with Caleb, he's not like out there just like making plays at like such a high rate that he's sort of a fantasy, like his fantasy ceiling doesn't feel especially high because like we're not loving the offensive coordinators we just laid out, but also like he's not, he doesn't scramble like that much, he's more like he scrambles around and then makes plays downfield. And it just hasn't been like high flying enough for you to feel that it's less about the quarterback 12 part of it, but more that he was going right around pick 100. Yeah. And there were still some pretty good picks left in that range. And and there were cheaper quarterbacks who, you probably feel better about. So I think you're not like, oh God, I can't believe I took Caleb Williams, but I would say you're not excited about that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Bo Nix part of the conversation here, Davis. I think this is probably a different answer. Bo Nix, drafted at pick 186 by the end of the season, quarterback 26 by positional ADP. He sits here at 17.3 points per game, and I think that's actually been trending up in recent weeks, if I'm remembering correctly. That's all the way up at quarterback 14. Is it as simple as Bo Nix smash pick at the end of drafts, or what do you want to say about Bo Nix's outlook rest of the season?
The weird thing is that he himself, if you took him naked, huge
That's
smash.
What it is. Yeah.
But if you took Dulcich, if you took Franklin, honestly, even if you took Sutton, if you took Mims, if you took, I think
Franklin might be the best one to have taken because he was.
But he only ran. I actually have this.
His role got downgraded pretty massively this year.
He ran,
and he had a horrible drop.
He's just. Let's just be honest. Like, he's just bad. I hate to say it. He's bad. But anyways,
I don't know. He is bad. I still have a little hope left for Frank because he's getting targets when he's out there. But
he was a fine 20th, 18th round pick. I'm not saying that was bad. I'm just saying like real life talent, Troy Franklin. I'm a little skeptical.
Watching him have that deep ball go like through his arms like this was pretty. I just was like, Justin Jefferson wouldn't happen to someone good.
Little Jordan Humphrey can catch that. Yeah,
this is one of those plays where you're like, well, you're not good.
Yeah.
But the issue on top of that is like the running backs, other than Javonte Williams for one game, have all been bad, and
Jaleel's been bad. We drafted a bunch of Broncos. That's part of it too.
I think Sutton is the only like salvageable one, and there's no way he was like a great pick.
Oh, I think Sutton's been a pretty bad pick where he went.
Oh yeah, he's been pretty bad. But I'm saying like if I looked at a Bo Nix team that was stacked.
Yeah, if you showed up, if you advanced to Bo Nix team, Sutton would be the one you would want with him.
Exactly. And I'm not saying it's amazing, but
wouldn't it be Davante? You just they're gonna score points?
I don't know, man.
That feels very fragile, dude. Like Javonte, like I know people are
Sutton doesn't feel fragile.
I just mean Javonte like could literally.
Yeah.
He's just not very good. Like I know he did beat up on the Saints, but he really is not efficient. He just is not.
No.
Him not getting there versus the Panthers. Like I'm a Javonte hater. I ranked him really highly this week in weekly rankings. I was playing him in DFS at chalk. I thought, versus the Panthers, guaranteed to smash. Dude, you can't get there against the Panthers in like an absolute blowout script. It's just tough.
Yeah, your coach is running fake field goals on 4th and 2, up 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and like Javonte, I think might backdoor to the issue is every time Estime has played, he's been bad. Like literally every time he's played, he's been bad. But pretty clearly they want Estime to not be bad. They would like him to play. So yeah.
Dude, I can't so I pulled up his game log and saw that he had 2.8 yards per carry. I was like, oh wait, no, that's actually from 2022. Let me pull up. And then he had 2.6 yards per carry. It was actually worse.
Oh my god.
And
this season he does?
No, this past game against the Panthers.
Okay.
This season he's at 3.8. Still not good, but he had 2 yards per reception against the Panthers with 4 receptions.
Dude,
he's 4 receptions.
The thing is, like, I think he is gonna backdoor into. If I was to guess, I think he holds the starting role for the rest of the season. Like,
I do too.
Maybe I have no idea what the update is on Tyler Bidet. This neck injury, probably he's not going to be part of the picture. They cut Blake Watson. Estime fumbles every other touch. Jaleel's just too small for a bigger role.
Did Estime fumble a lot in college?
I don't think so. I don't remember hearing that.
Yeah. Anyways, let's bring this back to Bo Nix because I guess the summary of Davis's point, which I agree with, is if you took him naked, that feels pretty good. It's just tough for him to get there, like as a stacked, correlated piece. Pat, do you agree with that as well, or anything else to say on Nix's?
No, that was going to be my point as well, because he's had you mentioned him playing better recently. He's had points. This is in NFC scoring. Let me see. So, but I mean, his like 3 of his 4 best games have been the last 4 weeks. Yeah. So 23.1, 22.7, falls off a little against the Saints, but he was still like pretty good in that game. 14 points there, and then 29.8 points last week. So, yeah, I mean, he's been pretty good. I think part of it with Knicks is like, I guess I didn't really realize how much of the value might be from the scrambling. Yeah. And not just that he's, sucking value out of the offense, right, with like running for a touchdown, but he doesn't seem like super great for check down stuff. Like, I think we thought we could maybe scammer away with
that
with
was
Javonte
supposed to
or
be
Jaleel.
his calling card, but he's been too slow at it. He's been a fraction too slow. So what happens is he throws the screen and then the running back is getting tackled.
Right.
Jaleel had that game with 5 receptions for 0 yards. So he just and this was what he was good at in college. So I don't really have an explanation for it. He really what it is he's playing much more like he played at Auburn than he did at Oregon, and that might be a Sean Payton thing. There might be an offensive coordinator who actually is like a better style, because I actually am overweight, like well overweight in every format on Knicks, because I expected him to play like 41-year-old Drew Brees. He's more been, you know what he is? He's Mitch Trubisky. He's super Trubisky. Trubisky-y.
Yeah.
That's a really good. Who has a longer time to throw? Bo Nix or Anthony Richardson?
Well, it's got to be Nick. Nix has got to be some of the longest time to throw, because he just sits
Richardson.
there. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. No. You're right. You're right. It's Nix. But like Anthony Richardson, it's a really long time to throw.
You know what's interesting about both those guys, Pat, is actually Richardson took a ton of sacks this past week. So I don't know if this is still true, but they were best and second best in sack rates this year. Like both Nix and Richardson, their superpowers, if they have one in the NFL, has been avoiding sacks so far. So
but
I don't know if that's
it's that both. You're right, but both of them. This is something with me where I didn't realize this part of Nix's game until, and maybe to Davis's point, it wasn't part of his game in college, or at least not at the end, but. He is not quick to get the ball out. He takes on. So if you look at like PFF's allowed pressure, he's pretty high there. They're charting him with allowing the pressure to get to him by holding onto the ball too long. But then he avoids pressures becoming sacks, which is also something Richardson did well in college and does well in the pros, and that's, I think, shows like good scrambling instincts.
Nix might be the best scrambler in football other than Mahomes. Like he has the Mahomesian ability to just be like, this is all breaking down, I'm turning this into an incompletion or like a 2-yard get. Like he's so good at it.
Yeah. I also want to give go ahead, Pat.
Sorry, I just thought his game was going to be a little bit more like a Breeze or a Brady, where he's getting the ball out quicker, and he's holding on. It's more Darnold-y. Darnold's got the longest time to throw in the league. It's more like that than, like a Breeze.
Yeah, I did just want to give Nix like a little bit of credit here, just zooming out. Like his wide receivers, we've talked about it, but Courtland Sutton, professional wide receiver, but probably should be your wide receiver 2, like a mid-range, below average wide receiver 2 on a team. And then besides
he might be wide receiver 3 territory at this point.
Sure, yeah. Whatever you want to call him, he's one of the weakest wide receiver 1s in the league, besides whatever the Patriots wide receiver 1 is. And then the rest of these guys, like I watched Troy Franklin for an article last week, and sure, he's shown some flashes, but if Troy Franklin is your wide receiver 2, that's a pretty bad spot to be in. And then it's little Jordan Humphrey. I mean, Marvin Mims is an absolute disaster, like trending to be out of the NFL. Josh Reynolds maybe is their second best wide receiver, but he's been injured. It's just a bunch of absolute nobodies. So the fact that Nix has been this good, led the Broncos to 5-3. I know, their defense has been awesome, so we can't give them all the credit, but I do want to see it. And maybe this time to throw thing, Pat and Davis, that you guys are talking about, like maybe get him like a real wide receiver and someone who can get open quicker, and he doesn't have this problem. So I do want to give him some credit. And also like the deep ball thing with Knicks. This is just like a film taker. Maybe you could find some numbers to support it. I think he actually has like the ability to throw a deep ball and to sling it deep. Like he's had some actually awesome thrown deep balls to Troy Franklin that he dropped, obviously. But like he can actually like sling it 60 yards in the air with some accuracy. I've seen that at points, but he doesn't want to throw it deep, or he doesn't trust the wide receivers to throw it deep. So I'm like cautiously optimistic about Bo Nix's like real life outlook. I'd like to see him in a different offense with better weapons, but like zooming out, I think it's still like a positive story for him.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. No, I guess I'm a little. My frustrations with Knicks are almost entirely about him not supporting weapons as a rookie. But like,
yeah.
If you're like a Broncos fan, or you were like really high on Bo Nix as a prospect, like I think he's shown a lot to like. You know, he's got really good scrambling instincts. He can make plays with his legs, and you know, the fact that he is allowing pressure and then not allowing those pressures to turn into sacks, you could categorize that as playmaking. You know, this is a guy who's trying to buy time for his receivers to get open so he can hit plays downfield. And then he's not really like getting punished for that because he can avoid the sacks, you know, or he can throw the ball away. So I think that it does point to him looking like he could be a pretty good quarterback in the league, which is great news.
Yep. Agree with all that. Let's move on here to the final player. I think maybe the player that, at least between me and Pat, we were probably highest on amongst all quarterbacks this year. Davis, I forget exactly where you stood on Drake Maye, the fantasy asset, but story with Maye, he was drafted around pick 200, quarterback 27. In the 2.5 games he's played, I did some.
Yeah, what's
some
the
funky
note that you have there?
Yeah, so I included the partial games from weeks. He basically played 2/3 of games in weeks 3 and 8. I counted the points in those games together and counted as if he's played 2.6 games on the season, just to get the sample a little bit bigger.
I see. Yeah.
So if you do that, that gets you to 22-ish fantasy points per game. But obviously, this is a 2.5 game sample, very small sample size. In both of his starts, he averaged his full starts where he played the full game. He was at like 19 and 20 fantasy points. So it's kind of same story, whether you include those partial games or not. That puts him at quarterback 4, just behind Jayden Daniels. I'll start with you here, Pat, because you were the Drake Maye bull here. What is your rest of season outlook on Drake Maye?
Yeah, I mean, the concussion sucks. Didn't even get a flag on that play.
Yeah,
the helmet on a slide with him, and so I assume he'll be out next week. So that obviously hurts because he didn't start for 5 weeks. So as far as a best ball pick, I mean that does hurt, and now he's going to miss two more games, and he has a week 14 bye. So the games played element is definitely a bummer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think from like targeting a guy as a talent-based bet, I feel really good. Like this dude I think he's great. I think he's a great NFL quarterback. Now, the situation is rough. The thing is that like I actually the offensive line does not look nearly as bad when Maye is back there as it does when Brissett's back there. Because he can actually like
that's how it works. That's always how it works. Offensive lines
Yeah.
always look better when they have like a good mobile moving quarterback back there. It's just math.
Yeah. And like I've seen stuff. I was watching the QB school breakdown on him, and he's been critical of his footwork and stuff. And I think points out like watch how he hitches here. If he didn't do this hitch, he could get the ball out beat quicker. Like, I mean, I'm sure he's right, but like I think Maye's like his feet basically are always moving because he knows like he wasn't protected in college and he's not going to get protected this year. And he's kind of like ready. He's ready to like move, which works for us because he's a really good scrambler. You saw that on the touchdown run before he got hurt. And I mean, we frankly saw it when he got hurt too. His deep ball can be, he's in a bit of an inconsistent downfield thrower, I would say. Like he's just going to miss some throws, which can be frustrating. But like when he's on, he's really on. But yeah, I think probably a similar issue with Knicks to an extent, where like it got me on Polk, which is just an absolute disaster. I mean, Polk cannot play. It got me on Kendrick Bourne, which is not going to work because like Booty actually would have been the last round guy.
What if Bourne gets traded to the Chiefs this week?
I mean, sure, that'd be nice. It did get me on Hunter Henry, which is
back
nice.
to the 49ers. Bourne back to the 49ers.
That would be good. That'd be good.
They need him.
But I think having the tight end who actually was ultimately a good pick as well is helpful. So yeah, Maye's not going to be helping your advance rates too much. But if you're telling me I'm flipping over, a finals team that has Maye and Hunter Henry on it, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yep, I agree with that. Davis, anything to add on Drake Maye here? I agree. Hunter Henry, I think at least compared to Knicks, there's like a clear winning stack partner. Like Maye Henry stacks feel great right now. Hopefully you didn't tack on too much of the Javon Baker, Jaylen Polk, Kendrick Bourne stuff as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Baker.
That's why my Maye teams are dead, is because Polk and Baker have been some of the worst picks on the board.
Picks.
Yeah. And there's like Jaylen Polk is like a second round pick to like maybe not on the team next year. Healthy scratch in week 8 of your rookie career.
I think it was a concussion, wasn't it? Was it a healthy scratch? I thought he got a concussion in the end of the London game.
Yeah.
Let me fact check that. Davis, keep going.
I mean, it's possible. Yeah, if it was a concussion, then okay.
It was a concussion. It was
okay.
Okay.
All right. Not writing his obit yet. Now that being said, the coaching staff has not seemed to say very kind.
Well,
things.
I mean, like, so I went to RotoWorld, and the top story there is Jaylen Polk says he has the best hands in the NFL after Gerard Mayo calls out his drops. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, shut up. Like, you're drop. Like, have some ability to be like, yeah, like I need to. I mean, it sucks that like Mayo keeps calling out all his players and saying they're soft and stuff. But like, come on, man. You have the best hands in the NFL. Like,
come on, that's a joke from Jaylen Polk. What's also a joke? I gotta get this rant off my chest. Actually, you know what? I probably shouldn't say this. But all I'll say is, I'll say it a little bit softer. Bill Belichick going on all of his shows to criticize the Patriots wide receivers, given that he's responsible for 85% of them, is interesting. It's just interesting from Belichick. That's all I'll say there.
Doesn't it sort of soften it that he wears that hot dog costume?
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better about it. But interesting. I just wonder if he questions how did all these wide receivers get on the roster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all looking for the guy.
Yeah, we're all looking for the guy who created this roster in New England. But anyways,
do you understand? You're the Patriots fan, and I think we'll have a better read on this than me. Are we gonna have to live through another season of this Mayo Alex Van Pelt team?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, these guys are not going anywhere.
I think so. Yeah, I think Kraft is going to give him at least one more year. I mean, to give them some credit, like expectations this season were rock bottom low. So like, I don't think like this win against the Jets, honestly, is going to be enough to be like, oh, we beat Rodgers. We got a couple wins. Drake Maye looks okay. Like, we got to give them one more year. That's my read on it.
Man, it's such a bummer because May's going to have to go now at a level where, that reflects he's going to start the whole year and he's good, right? But next year he might not be that great of a pick because like unless he gets, obviously if you give him an OC, I'm super bullish, but like you do see that this offense is limiting him. I think it's not just the weapons. Like I don't think that the offense is like particularly exciting. Although I
maybe
will say,
an OC change seems somewhat realistic. Sorry, go ahead. I'd say like a Van Pelt change doesn't seem crazy for me. I'd say like Mayo being fired seems out of the range of outcomes. I don't think a Van Pelt firing is like completely crazy.
Yeah, but that makes me nervous. I would, if you offered me Mayo and a new OC or Mayo and Van Pelt is the guy who wants Maye to succeed, I would take Van Pelt because I don't think you're getting a top of the line. You're probably getting Luke Getsy. Like if you offer me mystery OC that goes and works under Mayo for a year, that dude sucks. That dude's not going to be anybody. So I think you got to get rid of Mayo and bring in an offensive head coach. But whatever. I will say with Van Pelt, you are seeing Maye like read out plays. Like you're like, he's actually like doing like first read, second read, get the ball out to a check down. Like he is doing stuff where I feel like, if you're thinking about his like long-term development and stuff, it does seem they're putting like an NFL offense on his shoulders and making him play quarterback. And that's probably in the same way we talked about with Williams. That's probably good for his long-term development.
Yeah. This is a funny note from free agent T. Higgins will fix them. Not completely unrealistic, to be honest.
It's gonna be the Calvin Ridley contract. He's gonna get 4 years, $120 million or whatever, and then after 6 games, he's gonna be talking to the media saying, "Why did I get targets till the fourth quarter?"
I mean, you guys know I'm super bullish on Maye, but I think that would be pretty sick. Like Higgins is kind of the type of receiver I think would work pretty well with Maye.
I could definitely see the ceiling there. I could also see Davis's point. I think it'd be extremely volatile, but I think it'd be, if I, as a Patriots fan, fuck yeah, sign me up for T. Higgins. Like I haven't watched a real wide receiver in half a decade.
Best I could do is Darius Slayton.
Oh, I'll take.
Dude, Darius Slayton,
I'll talk myself into. I'll talk.
Give me Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Chiefs fans are the same as that. They're like just any wide receiver. Like DeAndre Hopkins catching a 9-yard pass in the soft spot of the zone yesterday. That was the highlight of the year for a Chiefs fan. Was just being like, holy shit. Wow. You mean you could just go to where the defenders aren't and then catch the ball? That's allowed? Unbelievable moment. I'll never forget where I was when DeAndre Hopkins converted a 3rd and 7.
Yeah. Man, everyone trying to make like derogatory wide receiver comments in the chat. Like, I get excited. I'm excited about Romeo Doubs and the Patriots. Any shitty wide receiver that the fantasy community hates is the best.
Doubs would be a great signing.
Yeah, great signing.
He's just like, he'll hold down the X roll. Like you don't have to worry about it.
Romeo Doubs, great Patriot. Great Patriot.
Would be a great Patriot, man. God.
Who's their X now? Is it Polk?
It's Booty. I think they're putting Booty out there at X mostly. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, Kendrick Bourne, he looked good last year. He looks brutal this year coming off the ACL, which makes sense. These older guys coming off the ACL. Pop Douglas, they only trust as slot only. Like he was 3rd on the team in routes last week.
He can play.
Pop can play, but he is a little limited. I think he's like a good slot wide receiver, but
yes, as a number 3 on your team, like he's
fine.
Helpful.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah. So, man, I don't know. Let's move on to the running backs. Spent about an hour on the quarterback, though. I think that was a good discussion. Let's talk running backs here. So, we'll kind of go through. I don't think we need to talk about all these because some of them are just such quick conversations. Like Jonathan Brooks. Pretty obviously, he's been bad because he hasn't played.
He's going to end up being like the worst pick on the board because he's going to play in about 5 games, and he's going to be in a timeshare with Chuba Hubbard for those 5 games.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I know. I didn't think that this was very likely what has happened, that he just misses 8 games. It's pretty brutal.
And just the Chuba Hubbard thing. Like, I think Hubbard's played well enough, and given that the Panthers season is basically over, what's the point of like putting your rookie running back in a workhorse role who just came off an ACL tear? Like that seems like malpractice to me if they wanted to do that. So, man, I think
although these teams
needs an injury to get there almost. Not like he can't be okay in the final weeks, but I think Hubbard's going to be at least 50-50.
Yeah, I think the problem for him is that Hubbard's been really good and will continue to be good, I think. But I don't think that we just see over and over again. Once a guy is on the field, they're not thinking about, is he going to be a half step slower in 2025 if we give him 5 more carries in this game?
Sure. Yeah.
Ever. So, yeah, if you have Brooks, you want him out on the field as soon as possible, and you want him to start flashing. Because I mean, I do think the path to upside for him is like he becomes a don't fire us type of play for the Panthers coaches. And, GM. Like they have to give some reason. They're not giving any reasons.
Yeah. I'll just say here, before we get to these guys one by one, I'll just highlight here the guys who have like beat. I realize this is for rookie running backs. You're not playing the game of, oh, by week 8, I hope they beat their positional ADP. Like that's not the bet. But just to highlight like how bad they've been as a whole, these rookie running backs. I think Bucky Irving, Braelon Allen just barely.
Braelon's got a huge spike week. He had a 22-point week. So
Braelon Allen is also a pretty high redraft guy. Like if we're drafting for the rest of the year, he'd be pretty high because he has such a locked in number 2 role.
I agree with all that. I'm just making the summary point that like I think there just hasn't been big wins amongst the rookie running backs.
I can't believe you
far.
included Jaylen Wright on this list just to include that he is averaging.
Negative.
Come on, Sam. Come on, man.
all right. We'll delete that. No,
don't delete him now. That's even meaner.
The way fantasy football works, Dylan Laube is going to have 1 billion points in week 17 when like everyone on the Raiders staff has been fired and they've moved on. Like Laube is going to get his opportunity.
Yeah. I want to skip over Blake Corum, Trey Benson. We barely seen these guys play. I think. No,
I actually do want to touch on that just for a second, which is I've gotten a lot of pushback on this. Like, oh, Corum, terrible pick. Can't believe you'd waste this, guys. I promise you, Kyren Williams turns his ankle. You are going to be talking about Blake Corum the same way you were talking about Jordan Mason. Like Jordan Mason, sharpest pick on the board. Whatever. Yeah. Like Corum's going to he'll average 1 billion points a game. And then the other thing. On the Benson thing, the staff told you, they said we are not playing this dude. Like it is James Conner. It is all James Conner. Amari DiMercato is ahead of him on passing downs. Like they were very straightforward with us that Benson was not a part of their plans, and his ADP fell and fell and fell, but it did not fall enough.
Yeah, it didn't fall enough. Yeah.
It didn't fall enough, and I took a decent chunk of Benson, so I'm definitely gonna revisit that one.
I did too, especially early on. Yeah,
but yeah, the thing is, like, I think you make this point with Benson too. Like, I get that DiMercato is playing over him, and his like handcuff upside is not clear cut in the way it is for Algier.
No, if Connor got injured, Benson would get the ball more than DiMercato.
Exactly. Yeah, he's still the backup to Connor, like for his base rushing role. Now it's clearly bad they don't trust him. Besides base down rushing role, if they don't trust him in third downs, that's like not good. But it's just, to your point on Mason, like these handcuff picks are so binary and they're so hard to evaluate. Like, were they good or bad picks? Because it's just literally like, were they like, does the starter get injured or not?
It happen? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess a good lesson is maybe to be more cost sensitive because like the same thing is true of Tyrone Tracy and Kimani Vidal, and they were far cheaper. They like take eating zeros in a year where J.K. Dobbins never gets injured with Vidal, much easier. Eating a 10th round zero every week with Blake Corum in the season where Kyren doesn't get injured is bad.
I think that's the thing with Corum of why, he was. So there was a little bit of a narrative that he was going to actually challenge Kyren.
Jordan Rodriguez says this every week. She says it, or someone says like, "Oh, we're gonna do 2 drives for Kyren, 1 drive for Corum," and then it ends up never being true. But the broadcast has said it 3 times already this year that McVay directly told. Does McVay just lie? Does McVay?
Dude, I don't think he can help himself, man.
I think honestly,
he can help himself.
Yeah, I think they start. I think it's actually been true that they've started the games each of the past 2 weeks like with that rotation, and then McVay is just like, I can't take Kyren off the field anymore.
I think you're right. I think you guys are both right. Yeah. Where he, because you know what, Pat, you're actually right. Each of the last 2 games, Corum has gotten a drive in the first quarter, and then the game something squirrely happens with the game that they have to punt more than they want to, or they turn the ball over something, and McVay goes, "Oh, well, we're not losing this one, so sorry, Blake, you're going to the bench."
Yeah, exactly. He can't budget. He can't budget his players' health. Like it's
he's drilled. He's drilled.
He's with the candles meme.
Someone, please tell me what to do with all the 3rd and 2nd round picks I've spent on running backs in my career and never ever played them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
The thing too with Corum is like he was like it's been a little bit revisionist history that he like never had a chance at any kind of base role. he was held out of all the preseason games with all the starters, which historically has been a signal for the Rams players. Turns out it wasn't with Corum, but like, I don't want to go back and say that this was like obviously going to happen, that he was never going to play. You can definitely make the argument. Sean McVay loves workhorses. You can make that argument. I get it. But to me, it wasn't 100% obvious this was how it was going to go down.
I agree.
Maybe that's me not reading the vibes right, but I think there was at least a chance he was going to have a bigger role in this.
Well, the funny thing is that I think if McCaffrey was healthy this year, that Mason would also just be a burn pick. Now he's a cheap burn pick, but like, talk about another guy who can't help himself. Kyle Shanahan, when he's got a guy he trusts, like he rides that dude too.
Although Jordan Mason might just be like brutally bad at football. Like he might just be as bad as his prospect profile suggested.
I kind of think Mason's
he had a little run.
Jordan Mason he had a game and a half. He was good against New England, but he's been brutal.
I didn't actually get the drill reference.
Oh, it's the one where he's like.
So I just put it in the because maybe someone in the chat didn't get it either.
I'm sure people probably are not woke to this. Actually,
this is not the drill one. The police don't put it in the newspaper, and like that's the. This is a deeper cut as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Our audience is probably too young to remember like weird Twitter.
Yeah.
The real reason is there's a follow up to it that is just so good.
Yeah, let me try to share this. As always,
Vidal, by the way, his time is coming because the J.K. Dobbins turning back into like a pretty inefficient runner. Like we're already there. We speed ran. J.K. Dobbins is the most efficient runner in the NFL.
I think Vidal might be one of the best picks. Like I think Vidal could ultimately be.
J.K. Dobbins yesterday, 17 rushes for 57 yards, 3.4 yards per carry.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the drill thing. I'm just horrible.
Sorry for outing you as a light mode user.
My eyes.
Oh God, there you go. This is it. This is basically. So Kyren Williams is the candles in this scenario, and Blake Corum is the utility bill, I think.
In my mind, second round picks were the candles. Like draft capital spent on running backs was the candles.
Oh, I see.
Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Blake Corum, and then the utility bill is Kyren. Kyren was $150. He was free.
Yeah.
He's lighting the house just fine.
The thing the reason I wanted to bring this up is that his follow-up post, this post is 2 years old. I've since lost custody of my children and my wife left me. Still wild about candles.
That's McVay with Kyren. We traded Cooper Kupp. Puka's out for the year. That Kyren though, he gets that Kyren though.
He's still
I've
great.
shipped off Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson for peanuts, but still got Kyren.
I thought Kyren was the candles and the money was his playing time. That's what I thought.
That's what I was thinking, Pat. Yeah. That's how I interpret.
He can't figure out how to budget the playing time, and Candles keeps getting $3,600 worth of playing time.
FF Doom is saying that correctly. That's still us about zero RB. Is the Candles is wide receivers. Candles is wide receivers.
I can't figure out how to budget.
Someone who is good at fantasy football, please help me get my budget.
That's really good.
Still wild about wide receivers.
Oh man. All right, where are we here? I can't even figure out a screen share anymore. Here we go. Back to the running backs. I did want to have the Jaylen Wright conversation here because the interesting thing about Jaylen Wright is going back to the preseason, I was actually a pretty big Jaylen Wright hater. I thought he was really expensive for a third running back on a Miami team. And I think that's kind of come to fruition. Like Mostert and A-Chain have both missed chunks of time and Wright never really got there. Now that was with Skylar Thompson and
if
Tyler
A-Chain's
Huntley
concussion game happened when Tua was playing, he would have been fine.
Yeah, probably. I actually don't know how I feel about this one. I will say like the advanced number stuff. This is the PFF missed tackles force per attempt. Jaylen Wright again on just 36 carries, really popping there. He's also really popping on breakaway percentile. And I believe if you look at the next gen advanced rush yards over expected stuff, he's also looked pretty good there. So Yeah, maybe more of a dynasty take, but like I think Mostert's going to be out of there next year. I'm kind of like cautiously optimistic about Wright from like a dynasty long-term perspective. I still kind of think he was a bad pick where he went from best
No,
ball
I
this
think
year.
he went cheap enough to where there are scenarios where he's like the pick. Like look at like the two touchdowns Mostert had this past game. Like he just like walked in. Like that was just like be the guy who that happens to. And Achane, the fact that Achane wasn't that guy and Mostert was, I think is somewhat bullish for Wright, in terms of how much goal line stuff Achane's gonna get in any scenario. Not that he'll get none, but like, there's a role there that's not Achane, and that role has some touchdown equity. So Tua stays healthy, Mostert doesn't. Achane run, frankly, like he did so far this year. I think you're feeling really good about Wright.
Yeah, I guess my only problem with that, and I agree that again with these conversations, it's so binary. Like if injuries happen, Wright could certainly be a thing. My pushback is just like Bucky Irving, Braelon Allen were always cheaper. Even guys like Tyrone Tracy, Kimani Vidal were always way cheaper. And to me, they just needed one injury to have a chance at like a workhorse role.
I think he needs one too, though.
You only need one. You only need one because they're not like it's the same as the Lions backfield basically.
But I guess
two guys are good.
Yeah, but he did get the injuries like multiple times, and in those games, he was not fantasy relevant.
Yeah, whereas the Dolphins just weren't in offense during those periods. Like
Tyreek Hill was averaging like 4 points per game.
Yeah, everyone was dead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, when you have a path like Tyrone Tracy did to like 75, 80% of the snaps, you can be on a pretty dog shit offense and get there in fantasy. And Jaylen Wright's path was not that clean, but
I mean, his offense wasn't supposed to be dog. I mean, I guess you could say we were too high on the Dolphins because
that could happen to them at any time.
That could happen. One concussion.
That could happen to that could happen to any offense at any time.
But I mean, their backup was still Skylar Thompson, and Tua, most quarterbacks miss one game when they have a concussion, and he went on IR, and then we knew that. That wasn't a surprise to us. So I'm open to the idea of like Dolphins a little more fragile than we all played it, but I don't know. At the same time, like the fact that Wright had the Mostert injury occur while Tua was out, like it's just that he ran really bad that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jaylen Wright is always going to be a mental block for me where I'm just going to have the 40 IQ take of like, give me an RB2 over the RB3. But I think I'm hitting my head up against a wall there with that take. So let's move on to the clearest winner, I think, on this chart, Bucky Irving. He's been like the only kind of meaningful fantasy asset in redraft, I would say, on this chart so far this season. He's at 11.6 PPR points per game, RB29. I think the impressive thing for him is he's got there without a major Rachaad White injury. I think White maybe missed one game, if I remember correctly, or has been banged up a little bit. But Bucky Irving has got there without injuries and been a pretty fun player. Davis, what is your outlook on Bucky rest of the season? I know it's like really messy here in Tampa Bay with all these injuries, with Sean Tucker involved. How are you feeling about Bucky Irving going forward?
Yeah, weirdly, I didn't end up with a ton of Bucky. I don't really know how that happened. I kind of matched the field 7-8%. But yeah, I mean, Rachaad White is the worst rusher in the NFL, or gaining yards, getting the ball handed off to him. But Sean Tucker is the idea that Bucky Irving could handle 18 rushing attempts per game or whatever, it's not going to happen because Tucker has just been good. But he should get the goal line stuff moving forward. And Rachaad White will, I'm assuming his stuff is going to trend towards 0. He fumbled again in this game. It's all bad.
He's a good receiver. I don't think White's going to go away as, a guy who can play on receiving downs and is pretty good at it.
Yeah, the snap distribution here, Rachaad White plays 41 of 73 snaps. Bucky plays 31 of 73, but Bucky gets more carries and targets. Sean Tucker plays 7 snaps but gets the ball 3 times. That feels like almost exactly how it's going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
And really it's just like, can Baker keep playing that well? Like if Baker can keep playing well, then Bucky can do well in this role. And if Baker really regresses without Godwin or Evans against better defenses, then yeah, it will not be as good.
Pat, yeah, what are your thoughts on Bucky, or do you want to build anything Davis was saying there about the role distribution between Bucky and Rachaad White?
I think fundamentally, Bucky's just good. Like that's my main takeaway. It's like when I watched him yesterday, he was breaking tackles and kind of working his way upfield, and you're just like, dude, this dude's just really good. Like that's the, with these rookies, so much of it just comes down to them being like really good players who didn't get drafted like it. And it's been, frankly, a pretty disappointing year for that. But he's been one of the few guys where we're just like, man, this dude, when you watch him, he really passes the eye test, and he's been pretty efficient as well. That's a plus there, right? Not a minus, that 35.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a hard time sharing these, but yeah, this is the NFL Next Gen Advanced Stats. Just comparing Bucky Irving to Rachaad White, he's at plus 0.5 rush yards over expected per attempt. Rachaad White is in the negatives there. And then if you look at, I don't have Rachaad White's pulled up here, but I can almost guarantee you that they're bad. Bucky Irving's missed tackles forced per attempt, he's in the 96th percentile, really high breakaway percentile. So just all the underlying metrics on Bucky Irving, I concur with your opinion. I think he's just a good player, a good running back going forward. I do think that Rachaad White's not going away. I do think, though, without Chris Godwin, we saw Bucs running backs have a combined 30% target share in week 8. That was split between mostly Bucky and Rachaad White, and a little bit of Sean Tucker targets in there as well. So I think without Godwin and without Evans for the next couple weeks, like these other wide receivers, man, in Tampa Bay are not getting it done. It's going to be a ton of Cade Otton and then Bucky and Rachaad White on screens. They're also running a lot of pony personnel with both Bucky and Rachaad White on the field at the same time, at least from what I saw, like in glimpses of that game last week. So, yeah, I think. Go ahead.
This is like a half-baked take that I'm going to be kind of doing on the spot, but so I'm just looking at like Kyron Williams had a 3.46 RAS. He was undersized as well. Bucky Irving had a 2.22 RAS. And
that's why I did not get that into him. I was like, he's somehow worse than Rachaad White.
Right. But both players were pretty productive in college. Yeah. They're undersized and unathletic, but productive. And we talk about like the defenses are changing, and it's kind of more about shutting down the pass. And is that maybe like, if you're just like a really good undersized back, are you now like, could Duke Johnson be finally a star in today's NFL?
I was wondering what the conclusion of this take was going to be. It's about Duke Johnson. That's
incredible. And we finally gotten to where Duke Johnson would actually be a smash, because we've been burned by these guys so many times. Like,
Duke Johnson could be a smash right now. Get him off the couch right now.
Well, fair enough. Yeah. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me that like 2 of the best late round picks in back-to-back years have had like almost the identical profile, like really good college resumes as far as production goes, unathletic, about 190 pounds, 5'9". But then you get him out on an NFL field and you're like, damn, this dude can play.
I would also personally love to see the like next gen stats timed game speed of Rachaad White versus Bucky Irving, because I know Rachaad White showed out in the combine, but I have not seen that guy move fast as a rusher like one time, at least like between the tackles. Like,
yes, you have one time. I've seen it happen one time.
When he gets out in space, he's actually fast, but like I don't know what it is. If you watch Bucky Irving versus Rachaad White and just watch them on like interior runs, you'd be like, oh, Bucky Irving's a way better athlete than Rachaad White. So there's something with this like tested athleticism not translating to the NFL field, right? Like I think you see that with Kyron too, where he looks to me like he has good burst between the tackles. So Yeah, I don't know.
For what it's worth, I pulled up next gen stats. Does tell you how many times these guys have hit 15 plus miles an hour. Yeah. Neither player's hit 20 plus miles an hour, but Irving's hit 12 times. He's hit 15 plus, and White's only at 8 plus on a fairly similar number of carries, 76 for Bucky, 67 for White. So
yeah, so his rate of hitting a high speed is higher for Irving. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying Irvin's showing more burst, neither showing breakaway speed, but burst is something, you know?
Yeah. Yep. All right. A couple more guys I wanted to hit on here. And also, Davis, Pat. Actually, we should have talked about this before the show, but you guys got hard outs, or can we keep going for another 10, 15 or something?
I do not have a hard out.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay. All right. We'll get through a couple more names here. I think Braelon Allen, I think it's kind of straightforward. I think he's been a good pick. I think like a more interesting debate maybe is jumping to Tyrone Tracy. I think he's been the next most valuable like redraft fantasy asset so far. He's had some spot starts, showed out in his opportunity. I'm curious, starting with you, Pat, like what you've seen from Tyrone Tracy so far, and whether you think he has a chance to actually hold the starting job over Devin Singletary in New York for the rest of the season.
He's looked pretty good to me. I mean, I do think your point about him having the 3-down skill set, and then that unlocking upside, even in a in a situation that's not perfect, is good. I've been impressed with his rushing, frankly. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver. I think part of the upside case was like maybe he could be one of these guys who kind of almost doesn't exist anymore. The satellite backs of old. But in the fill-in stuff, he was just like, if anything, it was almost like Eric Gray was coming in more for traditional like third down duties, and Tracy was just like a running back. So that's been, I think, the nicest thing about Tracy is that he just looks like a running back.
Yep. Davis, anything else to add on Tracy? I'm pulling up some of the advanced stats here on Tracy. Just like yards per carry, he's been better than Singletary. Rush yards over expected stuff, very similar. And then again, in these breakaway metrics for PFF, he's around league average. I would say like statistically, the one red flag for Tracy is his missed tackles forced per attempt numbers are relatively low. But yeah, curious if you have any takes on Tracy, the player going forward. Obviously, I think pick 180, like that was a good pick, or 186. But how excited can we get about Tracy going forward in like rest of season rankings?
So like you can't get that excited because he's a giant, and they're just like anything he creates, he's gonna have to be self-created. But it is a huge win that basically the coaching staff actually did the logical thing, which is like Devin Singletary, you're a great player, motor, you're where you need to be. It's actually what the Bengals are doing with Chase Brown and Zach Moss, where basically they're like, we suck, so we don't have the luxury of playing a shitty running back too. Like, we got to win some games, and a great way to win games is just to get a random explosive play. Like, like, we just handed you the ball, and it was like a well-blocked play, and Devin Singletary would have got 6 yards, but you got 27 because you found a good angle, and you made it past the safety, whereas Singletary wasn't going to make it past the safety. So it's kind of what I expected. Like, I said this to Gretsch, I think, with the week Singletary came back. Like, they just don't have enough weapons to be like, all right, well, we're giving 17 rushes a game to Singletary. Like, they specifically the early down rushes. It would be kind of funny to have Tracy be the early down grinder and Singletary be the passing down back, because you're basically throwing away an early down on a run anyway, especially if you're giving it to Devin Singletary. But like on 3rd and 7, you kind of want Singletary in there to pass ball. It literally is the Chase Brown, Zach Moss thing. Yeah,
I think that's a good comparison. I think like actually like Devin Singletary is like an upgraded version of Zach Moss. And I think Tyrone Tracy, sorry, Davis, is like a slightly upgraded version of Chase Brown, just because he's a little bit more versatile than Brown. He doesn't have the
that's
he doesn't
what
have
you
the
think,
pure,
brother. Tell it to Chase Brown's touchdowns.
He doesn't have the pure juice and long speed that Chase Brown does. That's like Chase Brown's trump card over Tracy. I just think he's like a little bit more versatile and well-rounded. But I will say to like defend Tracy on some of these metrics, like I've heard Hayden Winks and Josh Norris make this point. Like this missed tackles force per attempt stat, it is like a very good in the spectrum of running back stats. It's a very good one, but we don't like really have a great stat that's like the dude just avoids defenders entirely and makes them like whiff on him without even getting their hands on him. I don't think that's always tracked in missed tackles force. And I think Tyrone Tracy is a very good yards before contact running back. So watching him, like if a defender gets his hands on him, Tyrone Tracy is like pretty weak and will go down on first contact. But I think he shows like great vision and elusiveness to avoid the contact entirely. So yeah, I'm giving him more credit than these like advanced stats suggest. I think he's like a pretty good real life player for the Giants, but I agree with Davis's point. Like on this Giants team, Singletary, I think likely makes his way back into like something of a 50-50 split with Tracy probably going forward. So the win isn't as huge as like you want it to be as a Tracy drafter, but I still think this is like a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean, his rush yards over expected bears that out. He's both him and Singletary are in the negative, but he's actually a little bit better per attempt than Singletary. So, you know, that's been a Sean Siegel point for years as well, that yards before contact is valuable, and you're often
vision yards, baby.
Yeah, you're often paying for the market usually really likes the yards after contact, like that. Those yards are usually more expensive than the yards before contact. So, yeah, make dudes miss by not letting them near you in the first place.
Yeah, but this is like I agree with this. Singletary goes like maybe you can talk me into week 17 Giants. Like Singletary has some minor bruise, and they're like, all right, you know, season's over. Let's just see what we have in Tracy. Maybe something like that, but like outside of those type of outcomes, I don't think Singletary is just going away.
I think Singletary lurks in a certain way for Tracy as well, because Singletary's just been this dude that coaches really trust, and they just feel comfy with him out on the field in a way that I don't think is true of Zach Moss. Like Zach Moss is actually one of the guys who lost his job to Singletary, you know? So if Tracy makes a bad play, or, you know, if he fumbles the ball, or, you know, he kind of does some rookie stuff, I think Singletary could get the job back
for sure.
I don't want to think about our back. I have enough to think about. It's kind of the reverse point of the we're bad. Like we're bad, so let's get an explosive play. But we're bad, and I'm now concerned about our running back screwing stuff up. Like, no, I have too much to think about. The running back just has to do his job. So Tracy, I think, I mean, you're happy to have him for sure. But I guess I don't know that it's going to be like a straight upward trajectory from here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Last one I want to talk about here that I think I skipped over by accident, and I think is a big win at ADP, maybe like a little bit less discussed, is Ray Davis here. And I know he's only basically had that one good game, but I just think the fact that he got trusted with like 25 touches or whatever it was in that one game that James Cook missed. I get that like it's been a little bit of Ty Johnson in there. Like it hasn't looked as clear cut as Ray Davis is the handcuff option, but I think that one game was enough to prove it to me. And you look at the advanced stats for Ray Davis, again, small sample size, but he's been good on those as well. Passes the eye test for me. So yeah, I don't know if either of you guys, Davis, Pat, have thoughts on Ray Davis, but I'd say this is like a pretty good pick at 153 ADP.
I loved Ray Davis. I got a huge bag of him in the big board over the field in BBM. Part of that was I don't think James Cook is that good, and he looks, not that I don't think he's that good, but I thought his role was more fragile. But James Cook has been awesome. It does sort of feel like, well, maybe not. I was about to say it does sort of feel like he's going to get more work. He did get 6 rushes and non-garbage time, but James Cook also scored a touchdown up. I believe they were literally up 25 points when James Cook scored a touchdown. So probably not. But Ray Davis, You made me. I have to convert a 3rd and 2 for my life. I probably want Ray Davis doing it instead of James Cook, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think both I don't even want to make it like Davis versus James Cook. I feel like both these guys are just like pretty good running
players.
backs.
Yeah, just good players. Yeah, I agree.
That's my opinion on him. Pat, any final words here on Ray Davis?
I mean, I thought what was really impressive about Davis is that, so he gives 20 touches, 97 yards in that game, filling in. That's awesome. The fact they gave him that much work, as you said.
Yeah.
But he got used in the receiving game, and one of those catches was like downfield, like over the middle, wasn't it? It was like
it was a weird like broken play, like downfield target. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, almost like the fact that Allen was willing to target this dude, he makes the play. Like Davis.
I mean, Josh Allen got Dalton Kincaid a touchdown. He can throw it to anyone.
Yeah, fair enough. But, it's nice to see a rookie come in and be trusted in a few different ways. And, that was kind of the thesis of the play with Davis. Is like, this dude's like basically like a 3-year veteran who you take in the draft. And so I feel very confident that he would have a really valuable role, like to the Blake Corum conversation, like this. I mean, I would much rather have Ray Davis than Blake Corum, I think, right?
I think just because I think they're very similar to me, but just because we've seen it with Davis. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's always like, maybe that's a little bit the lesson to next year. Like, why were we taking Corum like 40 picks ahead of like Tyler Algier, guys that like we've 100% seen it. Like when there's an injury, they are the guy. That's like back to the cost adjusted point we made earlier, that maybe I might have a little bit of a leak there, like chasing the shiny toy over like the established handcuff. But then at the same time, I drafted a ton of CH and Elijah Mitchell with that logic, and look where that got me. So yeah, it's always these handcuff situations.
Directionally accurate with Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, and CH, to be honest, CH in the Kareem Hunt role. That would be so good that would be a beautiful 8.5.
CH could never be the Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt looks like actively overweight. It's incredible.
Is he gaining weight during the games?
I'm saying he comes out. He comes out of the.
He's got tacos on the sideline.
He comes like he looks like a lineman, a fullback. It's like it's just the Chiefs,
he's more of a fullback than Carson Steele. Many have said this.
I guarantee you, Carson Steele's better rush yards over.
Let me just see rush yards over expected per attempt. Carson Steele better than Kareem Hunt. So my take directionally accurate there. Nothing else to say. Don't look at any other numbers. Carson Steele better than Kareem Hunt.
I've seen the guys, they put the oxygen mask on. It's pretty common, like especially after big play, like you have to take a little oxygen. So I get it. I've never seen one attached to a milkshake.
I mean, it's great. 2 months ago, Kareem Hunt was just on the couch, just vibing, and now he's like the 4th best running back in fantasy.
What a crazy game!
What a crazy game! What a crazy sport we all watch and game we play in fantasy football. That was a fun breakdown of the rookies here. Pat and Davis. We'll be back next week for ADP chasing. God knows what we're going to talk about then. Hopefully this Sunday night game or this Monday night game, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson give us plenty to talk about. That would be certainly fun.
Well, Justin, I don't know if you've heard. I don't know if you've heard. Fields has a hamstring injury.
Yeah,
people are saying it's contagious.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It transferred from Russ's calf.
Yeah, it's moving up the leg.
We'll get the nation's top doctors on that hamstring injury for next week's show. We'll be breaking that down. We'll bring in a couple of medical experts for that, I'm sure.
I think Fields' hamstring will be feeling better after this game than after Russ's first start. That's my prediction. Not that it will be healed necessarily, but it'll be feeling better. That's
a good prediction, I think. It's going to be feeling a little better. Russ is not going to average 25 PPR points a game, I don't think, but certainly would be funny if he did. Let's wrap up today. I did want to shout out Stat Chasing is Tuesday night Today is Monday, right? Yeah. So tomorrow night, stat chasing. That's going to be an awesome show with Sack and Drico, as always, breaking down a ton of advanced stats across all the fantasy positions there. So check that out on Ship Chasing. Also, Shipcast this Thursday night. Like you mentioned, Pat, it's the Jets and the who on Thursday night this week?
Patriots, I believe, right?
No. Texans.
Texans. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought
yeah.
Oh, because
they just played.
Anyway, Dan Hansis is coming on. So that's going to be a really good one. Highly recommend everyone come check that episode.
Nice.
That'll be very fun.
Awesome. Yeah. And Pat, anything else you want to talk about for leg up going forward this week?
Yeah, Stephanie Miller's waiver wire article. Check that out. Fabulous Football. That'll be out late Tuesday, early Wednesday for all your waiver wire needs. Walkthrough will be out as always Friday morning. Matt Irby's Quick Slants covering Thursday, and then the Monday Night Football. That article, if you're looking for Monday Night Football stuff, showdown, whatever else, that's up right now. So yeah, check it out. LegendaryUpside.com. Still just $10 a month.
Awesome. That is a steal for sure. And Davis, I know you have a stream right after this. I think actually a redirect will take listeners there. And yeah, anything else, or just want people to join you in there?
No, just come hang out with me. We're actually just gonna try and answer the question of our drafters. What do you guys think? Do you think that people will take running backs next year? Because I think no. I'm about to do I'm gonna pull up the ADP board and look at all the wide receivers who died. I basically think no. I basically think 2025 is going to be 2024, but maybe Barkley goes in the first round instead of the second round.
My take is that I'm curious what Pat thinks. Just from firing from the hip right here, I do think the early rounds, like rounds 1, 2, 3, are going to remain extremely wide receiver heavy. I think the correction might be that the Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon types are not going to be going.
The running back 16 goes in round 4, not round 6.
Yeah, like a return of the dead zone. Like last year,
I think the dead zone's going to make a comeback. Because the dead zone has been kind of a smash because the guys have stayed healthy, they've scored points, and they went cheaper. So like this was the living dead zone, and that will be now. I think some of that is like you normally don't get a 30-year-old running back who's an absolute smash in the third round. Like that's not something that's going to happen very often. But Derrick Henry's defied our expectations throughout his entire career. So like, maybe I'll be willing to bet against that. But I do think there was this thing of this year, wide receivers in round 3 and 4. There were guys who would think, and Sam, you made this point throughout the summer, but it's like there were dudes there that like we didn't really love taking, but we felt like we had to take, and that's always a tough spot, especially like if variance then goes against you because you're like you don't have a hammer. Like you never had a hammer with any of these T. Higgins, Christian Kirk. Like any of these dudes
even Zay Flowers. Just
Zay
no touchdowns.
These weren't hammers. So if it's like then if the running backs stay healthy and run hot and get score touchdowns, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, and then if your guys get hurt on top of that, it just becomes really tough. So I think that's probably where the inflection point is as well.
That makes sense. Yeah. I agree with what Pat said there. Anyways, interested in that debate, Davis, on your stream. Everyone stay right here for that. We'll be redirected to Davis's channel. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. See ya.